Hey team, welcome to what I believe is week 40. So we only have 12 lessons left this year. I want to kind of stop looking at certain techniques and just start to draw things. See if we can start to apply everything we've learned on things that we need to get better at. So I thought a good thing this week could be looking at an ear. So I'm going to contain it in a bit of a square just to help me figure out the proportions. But from then on, we're just kind of going to go for it and I'll talk you through the process as we go. So grab your pencils and let's get started. So let's start with the rectangle, and all you want to do is use this as a single grid, trying to figure out the widest, the highest and the lowest point of the ear. You're then going to draw the points where the ear folds, as well as the areas of the shadows. So these are things that we've practiced quite a lot in our journey so far. Next, we want to shade in the shadows. So this is a bit of a rehearsal. It's going to feel like you're shading really dark, but it's actually not true because you're surrounded by light, which means you need to actually push your shades darker. But for now, we're just going to pop it in and we're going to start to build up our shading. So this is quite an intuitive way to draw and to shade. I really want you to spend a lot of time on this. So do your rehearsal stage, get your shades on there, push your shadows darker, and then start to add your hair. This way you will quickly see that your ear is surrounded by dark, and then you can start to see that actually the shade that you did first needs to be a little bit darker. So this is quite different to how I actually teach you usually, but I want you to start seeing what it's like to kind of do what you naturally do. And I do it too. I don't quite reach the shade I'm meant to reach at the beginning, so I have to go over it 2 or 3 times to make sure I go dark enough. So let's see what happens on this first stage when we put the base layer on, surround the ear in dark, and see how much darker it should go. We're not really honoring the values that the ear is because we're jumping around trying to see where things are a bit darker and a bit lighter. So it's a bit of a process, and it makes you really look at the image a lot more. It makes you think about all the relationships between the shades. And when you add a bit of the hair, so you see it's a very simple kind of block shading and a few hair directions, you can see that my ear is actually really, really light. So I essentially end up going over the whole thing again, which is what I try not to teach my students to do. And this is an example as to when it happens. So try your own version and see if your intuition kind of leads you to shade over it again and see what you need to push to make sure you're not leaving any areas white. So it's just a quick video this week, but the drawing isn't necessarily a quick one for you. For me, I find the shapes fairly simple, but I just want you to start testing yourself and see how you react to something that's overly curved, very subtly shaded, and it's going to be a good gauge to see where you're at for this journey. So if you want any feedback, do send it to me on my email address, or otherwise let's try and push ourselves next week and see what we can try and do in our next session. All right team, I'll see you next week for another lesson.